Welcome to TezTalks Radio, which is a video podcast that seeks to find the why behind latest news surrounding Tezos and discover the stories behind the people of the Tezos ecosystem. I'm your host, William McKenzie of Tezos Commons, and today we have our other co-host, Brian Lee of Tezos Commons, and we're going to do a quick ecosystem update. But before we get into all of that stuff, Brian, how's everything going?
You know how my day was, Will, today. I was texting you this morning. We were trying to go to the beach today, with our masks, of course. And we were trying to go...
Yeah, there's people not wearing masks, man. They're everywhere.
Yeah, they are everywhere, especially at the beach, where I feel like...
where they should be wearing a mask.
Yeah, there's so many people there, and a lot of people were not wearing their masks there. But yeah, we were trying to go to a beach in Gloucester, which is a pretty nice part of Massachusetts. And by the time that we were maybe 20 minutes away and it was still on the highway, we started seeing some traffic. Turns out that was a line to get into the beach parking lot, and it was backed up to the highway. So we decided not to go to that beach, and we ended up going to a different place instead. That was more like a lake beach kind of thing, so not the ocean, but more of a lake. And we didn't end up going in the water that much. The water was kind of questionable. There were some bird feathers and plastic caps and stuff like that, all the good stuff you want to be swimming in. And there were also a lot of people who weren't wearing masks. I think you're also supposed to stay 12 feet away from each other, which that definitely was not happening.
Yeah, I need to get out to the lake at some point personally. I honestly can't really remember the last time I've been. I feel like it's been at least 2 or 3 years.
When was the last time you left this room that you're in right now?
Well, I mean, all of our viewers and listeners know I was in Florida recently, so I traveled.
That's true. Not just a green screen.
Earlier last month, I believe.
Yeah.
But for the most part, at least as long as this virus continues to be a problem, I am not going to jump up and down and, try to go everywhere.
Very smart man.
But anyways, we're not here to talk about lake trips or beach trips. We're here to get into some ecosystem updates. The first thing that we wanted to talk about was the Proof of Stake Alliance. And I actually wrote an article about this recently. I think just in general, the Proof of Stake concept, from a technical perspective, has been around for some time. I believe it was first introduced in 2012, as a potential solution to the high energy consumption, all that's needed within Bitcoin mining, which, operates under a proof of work mechanism. Since that time, we've seen, obviously the rise of protocols such as Tezos and many others. And I think it's gotten to a point where we need to look deeper into how these rewards that you earn as part of staking your tokens, how they should be treated, because there's already a lot of regulatory uncertainty. But I think one thing that really differentiates, a proof of stake asset compared to, a proof of work based asset is there's this really involving and strong unification, within these networks, because you have people constantly talking about, who they should delegate to. You'll have conversations around hardware setup, and you also have conversations around governance proposals, as opposed to this just being strictly some form of, money. I think there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes as the industry, the proof of stake industry, continues to grow. This uncertainty definitely, needs to be figured out. And the Proof of Stake Alliance has been, working pretty hard at jumping on that.
I think that this kind of thing is definitely a necessary thing within crypto. Now proof of stake and all of this quote unquote passive income. So that leaves a lot of questions out there about how do we treat this in terms of taxes, and now you have a product like, for example, Coinbase, where you can stake your tokens on there. So Coinbase itself is a mainstream kind of app, right? I can download it. You can do it. My mom can download it. I think my mom actually does have an account on Coinbase.
None of my family members have a Coinbase account.
I don't know if she buys any crypto. She could be Satoshi. I really don't know.
Possibly.
Yeah, she could be. She does have a Coinbase account. So now that we have these apps that allow basically anyone in the world to buy tokens and stake them and earn passive income on them, I think it's really important to have the guidelines out there to teach people how do you report this on your taxes. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the States who are doing their taxes as we speak. It's due on July 15th.
The 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are probably trying to download their reports on Coinbase. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are planning not to report crypto, which I think is dumb. But that's a topic for another podcast. Yeah, they'll come for you. They know if you use Coinbase and you don't report, I'm sure they'll come for you.
And just kind of to add on to that, I interviewed Jacob Arluck of TQ Tezos. He's kind of one of the people who joined early on within the Proof of Stake Alliance. The idea, really, I'll read off a quote here, is, the idea is basically that these networks are not just platforms for financial products, but rather public utilities that beggars provide to everyone in the world who wants to use a credibly neutral, decentralized public infrastructure, example being Tezos, for things like asset store value or identity. Like I said previously, I think it's definitely something to consider because there's all these, more involving and engaging aspects that go into not just strictly holding these tokens.
Right. And I just think like now that we're at a stage that it's clear that this is not just some sort of game, right? The past 5 or 6 years, maybe a while back, some people could have said like, oh, this might not last. And if you think that something might not last, you're probably not going to throw all of your funds at it to really get it up to spec. So now I think we're at a place where we see a bunch of these platforms, and we're seeing a lot of these platforms, they're actually being used in the real world. So now you're in a situation where you really need to decide, like, where do these platforms live and respond? Relative to, I guess, everything that's going on around us. So to have some sort of alliance like looking into these questions I think it's very bullish for all of crypto in general. That's being taken pretty seriously. And I don't know if this is something specifically that this alliance would really be involved in, but for example, like if you put some kind of message onto the blockchain and a government didn't agree with that kind of thing, like how would they act to censor that? They really can't do that in this case. And I'm really interested in those kinds of things because, of course, it has a lot of use cases. Like if someone is in an oppressed country and they can start to share the info, like embed it in a blockchain. I think some Chinese student actually did that on Ethereum a while back.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if, some WikiLeaks, some important governmental information, got linked and, was put under the transaction field, the data field, some documents, that are classified. So the next topic that we wanted to discuss was BUIDL Labs. They have released a new SmartPy training course. Brian, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. So this SmartPy course, for those people who don't know what SmartPy is, it's basically a smart contract language that you can write dApps in and write smart contracts in. And instead of writing it in Michelson or any of the other languages, this actually allows you to write the smart contract in Python. If you've read my post recently, I recently wrote a post titled The Tezos Experience for Developers. We'll link to that. It was on the Tezos Commons blog. That post kind of talked about what SmartPy is, as well as all of the other languages that you can write these smart contracts in. And I think SmartPy is pretty cool because it opens up this blockchain platform to a lot of devs out there. Python is one of the most popular languages in the world, and there's actually over 8.2 million people in the world who code with Python. So, and now that we have, SmartPy, it opens up the Tezos blockchain to all of these people out there. And when you learn crypto stuff through playing games, I think it really helps you grasp the concepts more, because I think when you're in crypto, it's not really like when you're trying to make a dApp, it's quite different from trying to code like a normal web app or an app that you would just put on your phone. It's really, you have to understand how the platform works, how the economics work to a certain extent, like the role of the token, and how you use that to extract the value that you can build out inside your app. So to be able to learn all of these concepts in the form of a game, instead of just trying to like read through docs or trying to read through blog posts or even watching things on YouTube, to be engaged into a game that builds all of these concepts into the game is very good to me. So, I personally did not try out the game yet. My Python isn't super strong, so I'll probably have to brush up on that a bit. Cryptobots versus Aliens is the name of the game, and Aliens is something that I wouldn't be surprised to see this year. It's on the table. Yeah.
There's just been so much going on this year. It really makes you wonder. But Cryptobots versus Aliens, I think games like these, as you pointed out, are very helpful and, encouraging for developers. In fact, it's pretty similar to, the Tezos Academy, which we discussed on a previous podcast. It was like a little space game for learning Lego.
Yeah. I think it's really important because we also have to think like the generation that's really growing up right now, I think is the first generation that really, when they're growing up, they have something like an iPhone in their hand, as opposed to people like us, where we had a very different kind of game. Like we were playing like Game Boy Advance or
Game Boy SP.
Oh God, Game Boy SP. That's the rectangular one, right?
The first Game Boy I had was the original one, the purple one.
Yeah. And then the SP was like the square
SP
folding.
came after.
Yeah, I had one of those too. I had a silver one. But like the point is like those were very different games. And I feel like the point of all of those games, like if you buy Pokemon, I guess the point is if you bought a Game Boy, and no one is really going to make a smart contract game for that, because, in order to have a game on the Game Boy, you have to go through all of these licensing things, and you have to get the cartridges, you have to get those made. And it's not really like what it is now, where anyone can build a web app, and the web app tech has advanced to the stage where you can build full out games that run inside Chrome. You can also essentially make an app that runs on your phone, and there's all these cool things. And we now have these really, really young kids who are growing up with mind-blowing games that are just on their iPhone. I think the idea of putting all of these educational concepts into games is really smart, because now we have things like phones that can actually make it look really fun, make it look really cool, you're trying to kill the aliens or something like that. And when you tell that to a 10-year-old boy, they're like, oh, great. Like, that sounds like just what I want to do today. But at the same time, they can also learn about blockchain stuff, So
right.
you can wrap this into a really fun game, and it suddenly appeals to a lot more people and a lot more ages as well.
Absolutely. So I think that's enough discussion about Game Boys and Game Boy
I can
Advance,
talk for a long time about Pokemon glitches.
Right. Actually, I used to play the Pokemon Red. I
Yeah.
don't know if you remember that. But
I was
anyways,
Pokemon Yellow. Yeah.
right. Anyways, the next piece of news that we want to get into was this really neat news that came out about Werenode. And what they're doing is they're developing a electrical vehicle charging solution on Tezos. And it was really neat. I was reading through the post yesterday. They have this method called peer-to-peer charging. And it's like a technology that can allow individuals to share their own private EV chargers, is what they're called, with others, during times that they're not using them. So I think that's pretty neat. And if we go back a little bit, there's something similar to this that we've heard a lot of news about. It was surrounding autonomous driving functions that the Invited ecosystem is working on. I think these two pieces offer a lot of very interesting use cases for blockchain, because you see these names, especially around, Invited, you hear those big names, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, and, with this, I believe it has some ties to Mitsubishi, Renault, and Nissan, but a lot of people don't look past that headline. And, when you really kind of dive into this, it's pretty neat. And there's definitely some use cases for blockchain there.
Yeah, I think the transparency angle is pretty huge, and not just like diverging a bit from the topic of actually just the charging thing. I think just in general, like being able to stream information from a car to a blockchain, that really comes in handy. Like, for example, if you got in a crash or something, right? And then now you have a timestamp of like when the chips on the car, like it logged a crash, and like stream that to the blockchain, and then you can say like, oh, at 5:15 p.m. The car crashed here in this spot. I feel like that kind of stuff happens a lot, where you might not necessarily have the proof that, oh, just like last week, someone keyed my car. And we were on the phone talking with the insurance and just like trying to explain to them it's like really awkward, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I believe you, etc. But of course, I don't think there's a sensor on the car that could sense when a car was keyed.
There may be in
there could be
years.
Maybe on a Tesla, who knows? If you had that technology where you could timestamp things that are going on in your car, like if you turn on your left blinker or something and that put up a message, I don't know. I probably wouldn't do like the left blinker thing, but just saying like if that was possible, you can really build out a system that's really transparent in terms of exactly what your car did.
I guess going on to our last topic here, if you listen to our TezTalks Live, we had the two teams, TZ Stats and Tulip Tools on, and they released Tplus. So, Brian, would you like to talk about Tplus release from Tulip Tools?
Yeah, so Tplus is a development environment that helps devs really take a lot of the grunt work out of the stuff that they're trying to do. Like, as a dev, the thing that you're most interested in is probably actually coding. It's probably not, you're not really interested in the whole things like, you have to set up all of these different things. And basically for each project, you have to repeat these tasks in order to get to the stage where you are okay to actually start to code. And in some cases, in some projects that don't have extensive tooling, that can actually take up a lot of time. And you end up in a space where, if you have like a bunch of people who are trying to build stuff on the platform, let's say you have like 10 devs and each of them has to spend an hour trying to set something up for each thing they do, like collectively, if they work together, that's 10 hours of time that's been lost, right? So I think this is a great thing for Tezos. And we've seen like a lot of tools. We were talking about the Truffle Suite, right? This is not exactly like that, but in terms of tooling that is here in order to speed up the process of making dApps and all of that stuff on the blockchain, it's really bullish for this project here because we have all of these different devs who actually want to build out these tools. So if there are devs who want to build out these tools, it also means that there are also devs who probably want to actually make apps on the platform. Because if that was not the case, I don't think a lot of these people would really be spending a lot of time trying to build out these really necessary tooling. So in terms of Tplus, it allows you to make different environments in order to code in. So each environment is, I guess, like a good term for it would be containerized or sandboxed, where, if you have one over here and one over here, the stuff you do in this one is not going to change the stuff that is in the other one. And it's basically working on two different computers, but you're within the same computer. And that's like a really basic thing that devs need to have, but it's also something that a lot of projects don't have. And if you have it, it makes you that much more competitive in terms of where the devs are going to go when they're looking for a platform to work on. So,
right, and it's not only that. In a few projects, I can think of one. Not having all these tooling, this developer friendly, atmosphere like Tezos has, with all these integrations and tooling options. When you're trying to code something and build it, since the documentation is not as well thought out, there's some things you'll probably miss, and it's something that somebody else may know just from trial and error. So
yeah.
I think tooling is something that's very important, and Tezos has a very friendly atmosphere, as you wrote about in your recent post.
That like brings to mind something that I wrote about. I don't have the post pulled up right now, but I was writing something about like ecosystem builders and like what we should assume as we build out this platform is that most people will always take the route of least friction. And that's true, I think, in all walks of life. Absolutely. It's not really necessarily about taking shortcuts. Like the route of least friction does not mean you always take shortcuts. It just means that, you want to optimize your time as much as possible. And in terms of blockchain, if you're a dev, the route of least friction means working on the platform that has these tools that are built out for you, because your strength is not in building out tools like these. Like if you wanted to make a DEX or something for this platform, but first you need to like work out these basic tooling. Your skills might actually be like, oh, I can build a DEX in 3 weeks. But if you had to work on these tooling things, which you don't really have interest/experience in, it might end up taking a lot more of your time because that's just simply not what you like to do. So I feel like we're all here to build out this platform. So really the thing that we can do to make it like the route of least friction for devs who are looking to build on blockchain. That's a really powerful thing. And unfortunately, like a lot of projects just don't see it that way. For someone who's like, and I think part of it is a lot of people are in a vacuum, because if you're like a super skilled dev, right, you might come from it as a different perspective as someone who's just trying to get in. Like you might think like, why can't people just do this, right? But if someone is just trying to come in, they're gonna have a really different perspective. And as someone like me, you know, I don't call myself a dev, but like I enjoy trying to hack around with code and making simple to medium things, you know, not really advanced things.
Right.
I enjoy, and this is not just for blockchain, like this is something like I made my website all by myself, right? I didn't use something like WordPress or stuff like that. Like I went to a platform that had the tools that allowed me to like build out all of the logic behind my website. And certainly I could have built all of those tools, but why would I? Right? This was already out there. A lot of people have used it and tested it. There's great docs around it, and I use that. So I think a lot of people who are trying to get into blockchain are going to have that same perspective, because I know blockchain is already quite a complex word, so it actually makes people scared sometimes. I feel like they're trying to come in, you know, blockchain, token, economics, game theory, you know, all these terms thrown out there. So long story short, I kind of went off on a rant there, but it's just it's just very exciting that we're seeing all of these tools that are being done. You know, it's not really like a sexy looking dApp or something, but this is going to allow people to build the sexy looking dApps, and that's a very important thing.
Yeah, just going off on that, you know, a lot of people still don't even understand what Bitcoin is. So why make the documentation so difficult?
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. I mean, I kind of went off there.
That kind of wraps it up for the main topics that we wanted to discuss. Brian, is there anything that you'd like to add in general?
No, I think that's it for now. We have an exciting interview coming up with Polychain Labs this coming week, so please stay tuned for that. And if you like this podcast, please hit the subscribe button in whatever app you're in.
And be sure to follow Tezos Commons on social media.